Going on, guys? We are coming to you live. This time we're going to have an unusual game here. It's going to be Tolarian Dropouts versus TinyGrimes Blitz. TinyGrimes on Ira, Tolarian on Dorinthea. And the reason that I say this is going to be unusual, I believe Tolarian Dropouts is also going to be streaming this on his own channel. So I think it might be interesting to check out the differences and similarities in the commentary after the fact. I think I'm going to check out his video after the game is done from his perspective and see what he was thinking. But for now, I'm going to be doing my own commentary, and he'll maybe check it out afterwards and see what I was thinking. So it should be interesting. Okay, so right here, we have Tolarian Dropouts on the left. We are using this cool Tolarian Dropouts playmat thing that he made here, looking pretty sweet. And he is going to be playing the Dorinthea here, the warrior in Blitz, armed with the Dawnblade, versus on the right, TinyGrimes, a player who also has a YouTube channel, and he's running Ira with two harmonized Kadachi. Again, very standard. You know, the Ira decks do tend to run a copy of the Zephyr Needle, but you're normally not going to be using that against an opponent who is playing you're normally not going to be using that against an opponent who is playing warrior, because there's a fair chance that they're going to have some defense reactions. Tolarian has elected to go first, which is interesting. I think normally you want to go second in this matchup, but he may be trying to get a surprise off with an initial attack. And TinyGrimes says, "I'll be rooting for you. I really hate Ira." So Tolarian even has the support of his opponent when it comes to this match. Let's take a look and see what's going to happen. Okay. So TinyGrimes has a really interesting hand with 2 Sigil of Solace in his opening. That's actually quite bad. You don't want that. And it leaves an opportunity for Tolarian to potentially do some major damage if he makes an aggressive play with attack reactions. The question is if he's going to do that. Often you just want to Arsenal and pass on the first turn under normal conditions. But the fact that he took the first turn might indicate that he's trying to do something with it. Normally, I do think that in a Warrior versus Ira matchup, both decks are kind of aggro, and typically you're going to want to go second in an aggro versus aggro. So he's going to come in. This actually could be an opportunity to get a lot of damage through, though, because of this awkward hand with 2 Sigils of Solace. So he starts out with a Warrior's Valor blue. Your next weapon attack this turn gains +1 attack, and if this hits, the attack gains go again. Dawnblade then coming in, and if this hits and it's the second time that it's hit this turn, put a +1 counter on Dawnblade. At the beginning of your end phase, if Dawnblade did not hit this turn, remove all +1 counters from Dawnblade. So he's coming in for 4, and if this hits, he'll get the go again, and it's blocked only for 3 here. A little interesting. That does mean that 1 damage gets through. Now, the question is, there is 1 energy floating for Tolarian. Is he going to... We could easily see him play that red overpower and just try to hammer a lot of damage through, but I actually think under these circumstances, it might be better to save it for the next swing. He has 1 energy floating, so if he swings again, he could potentially pitch that blue shunt and then use that to play the red overpower, and it will easily break through Tiny's defenses and potentially give Tolarian a +1 counter on his Dawnblade on the first turn. Okay, so Tiny only blocks for 3 and takes 1. A little interesting here. So Tolarian's best move is probably going to be to not use the bracers, but rather to just go in with the Dawnblade swing so that he's threatening the red overpower. He could, on the other hand, pitch the blue shunt, use the bracers, and then swing for 4, and then put the red overpower in Arsenal. But because overpower is so expensive, I don't find it to be a good Arsenal card. So this attack is actually going to be for 3, and then he'll play the red overpower for a intense +6, which will then not only do some major damage but also break through Tiny's defenses and get him that Dawnblade counter on the first turn. This is going to be very interesting here. I think this is a huge opportunity for Tolarian. With Tiny having 2 copies of Sigil of Solace, that would be really good if Tolarian wasn't being so aggressive, but with this aggression, those Sigils of Solace are not what he wants to see, as he does not have the ability to fully stop this attack, and he's going to take some major damage. Even using both of those Sigils to gain 5 life, he's still going to be down 2 from his position at the start of the game, and there's that +1 counter on the Dawnblade, so this is an excellent first turn for Tolarian. And we do now see those Sigils of Solace coming out. One is a yellow copy of Sigil of Solace. So this is this is the red one, and it's gain 3. The yellow one is just gain 2 as an instant. Unfortunately, because it's an instant, it cannot block. I believe there are no instants in the game at present that have the ability to block. And as a result of that, this is going to be a counter on the Dawnblade. Tiny says, "What a wacky first hand," and I have to agree, very unusual. Tolarian saying, "Haha, yeah, I feel ya." Definitely an odd circumstance there. So let's see what Tiny can do to come back here. He's definitely not in the spot that he most wants to be with that nasty turn from Tolarian, landing that +1 counter. Let's see what Tiny has to respond. The good thing about this situation for Tiny is that because he is going second, he did get to refill his hand, so he is going to be able to come back with some aggression and hopefully blunt some of what's coming here from Tolarian. So Tiny opening up with an E-Strike 5 go again. I think under these circumstances, it might be a prudent choice to block with the Courage of Bladehold at some point and then potentially use it next turn since he has low energy. But we'll have to see exactly what happens. I think we're probably going to see pitch into a second Kadachi swing for 2. I would block that with Courage of Bladehold personally, and then it's going to be followed up by a flying kick for 7, which is it's a really aggressive hand here from TinyGrimes. If I'm Tolarian, I'd probably block that with Courage. Although, actually, maybe you block that with Skullcap, but I don't know. I might block that with Courage to just try to keep the aggression going as much as possible. And so the reason I say that is the Courage of Bladehold, to use its ability, which can give you quite a bit of explosiveness or whatever, you have to actually discard it. And it also blocks for 2 with Temper. So you want to have used that first block to save 2 before you end up using the ability. Okay, so this flying kick for 7, I would block. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. I would actually block with the refraction bolters here. He's doing a full equipment block. All right, so this is maybe more equipment than I would have used. I think that I would have maybe wanted to save some of that equipment and block with 1 card. But he does go for the full block there and actually does block all 7 damage, denying the Mask of Momentum trigger. So Mask of Momentum, for those who aren't familiar, when an attack action card you control is the 3rd or higher chain link in a row to hit, draw a card. So the full block there is going to prevent that mask from triggering. So then Tiny asks, do you mind getting a counter in his Tunic, which he had forgotten? And Tolarian says, okay. So Tolarian now has taken actually 7 damage plus all of his equipment damage. That's pretty huge. So Tiny's hand was really aggressive. He threw out 14 damage, and Tolarian didn't defend with a single card from hand. But he's now going to have to try and get through the defenses somehow. And the interesting question here is how he's going to do it. So he has 2 copies of Route. So I think he's going to use Courage. I would use Courage here to get me that extra energy because he's really desperate. Now, interestingly, he goes for the Iron Song. Determination here. Actually, that makes a lot of sense with no Arsenal card. Yeah, he's going big. Okay, so he has Steelblade Supremacy, Iron Song Determination, and a counter on his Dawnblade. So +1 in Dominate. That puts it at Strength 5 with Dominate. And then +2, and whenever this hits, draw a card. So he's coming at Strength 7 with Dominate, and if it hits, it will draw a card. Under the circumstances for Tiny, I think what I would actually do is I would defend with my... defend with Mask and Breaking Scales, and use the Flick Flack to stop this, because this is extremely bad to take, but he doesn't do it, so he's going to take a lot of damage here. This is really dangerous. So this is going to be... He does block it with a Flick Flack. So the good part about this is Flick Flack's ability means if the next card you defend with this turn is a card with combo, it gains +2 defense. So that will shore up his defense for the second attack. However, landing the hit, Tolarian gets a card draw. And unfortunately for him, he does draw something helpful, actually. Oh man, this is wild. So he actually could play this Steelblade Supremacy, pitching that Route, and just try to push through even more. And it would give him a +2 and potentially 2 card draws. So right now, he could swing again for 7. But because the Flick Flack effect is there, if the next card that Tiny defends with is a card with a combo, it gets +2. So that would mean... Yeah, I think he has to pitch and play the second thing so that he doesn't actually get stopped by the Flick Flack bonus. And yes, second copy of Steelblade Supremacy being played. So he'll now draw 2 cards if he hits. And he comes in with the Dawnblade, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, strength 9, draw 2 cards on hit, and he'll get a second +1 counter. This has been a really crazy game. It's incredibly aggressive from both players just from the get-go, and that's sometimes what can happen in the Blitz format. Let's see what Tiny does on the defense. This attack also still has Dominate. 5. So Tiny could stop it if he blocks with all of his equipment and loses his Mask and Tunic to do so. He could use his combo card on the defense, and that would defend for 5. And then he could use his Mask, Scales, and Tunic, and that would be another 4, and that would block all 9. So but he doesn't do it. He's only going to block 5. He's going to keep his equipment. The problem with that is it means that he's going to eat 4 damage, and that will allow 2 card draws from Tolarian, which will put probably something strong into... Oh, man. And one of the card draws does hit a Sigil of Solace, which he can immediately play, and then Arsenal the Iron Song Response. That's what I would do. No, he's going to Arsenal the Sigil of Solace. Very surprising to me that he doesn't just immediately play that and draw more cards. But I think he may be trying to save the Iron Song... I think he's trying to save the Iron Song Response for pitch, and that's fair. Okay, so I think he's trying to save the Iron Song Response for pitch. I'm still a little surprised. I think I probably would have arsenaled that, but he is going to save it, and he does not play the Sigil of Solace yet. Maybe hoping to bait something out. The thing is, I don't think this is going to be a turn that has the prospect to bait anything out, just because of how ahead he now is. And we're going to see a Life for a Life coming out here. So Life for a Life red coming in for 4. And if it hits, he'll heal 1. And it has Go Again because he has less life. And let's see what's going to happen here. By the way, shout out to Zombon_EH who followed the channel this afternoon. And to Darth Buckets and Water Mirror Gaming who followed in between the previous stream and this one. Okay, so no reaction coming in here. So Tolarian, I think just taking the damage here. So he doesn't really need to care about this. I might have actually tried to block the Life for a Life, but I don't know. He doesn't really care about this. And then this third swing for 1, he doesn't actually need to block this because it doesn't trigger Mask. He opts to block it for 1 with his equipment, which I think is a minor error. If I were him, I would have saved that Skullcap to potentially be used later in a situation where I could use both the Skullcap and the Bracers to block the middle attack for 2 and break tempo for to deny a potential Mask trigger. But I think I'd be interested to hear whether or not he just decided to do that block, or whether or not he decided that was going to be whether or not he decided to do that block just because he wanted to, or whether or not he thought that the Mask was going to allow his opponent to draw again. Okay, so pitching the Iron Song Response. Dauntless Blue. Your next weapon attack this turn gains +1. The next defense reaction card the defending hero plays this turn costs an additional 1 to play. It has Go Again. And then the Warrior's Valor +3, and if this hits, it gains Go Again. And then the Swing. So this is Strength 3, 4, 5, 6. This is Strength 9. So 9's a lot. 9 is a lot. Strength 9 and the first defense reaction will cost +1. So under the circumstances, though, a full block is probably going to be the best move. So it's Strength 9. If it hits, it will Go Again, and the next defense reaction costs 1 more to play. If I am Tiny, I think what I'm doing here is full block with all the cards that I have in hand and not using the Flick Flack. The Flick Flack is impractical here because it will cost 1 to play, and his Tunic isn't charged up. Dauntless is much better when the opponent's Tunic isn't charged up. So the way this card works, by making the next defense reaction that the defending hero plays cost 1 more, it can sometimes push them over a breakpoint to where their card is going to be very inefficient. So as an example, this Flick Flack in hand here costs 0. If it costs 1, it's suddenly very bad because you have to pitch another card to actually play it. So having to pitch another card to play that Flick Flag really hurts a lot. And as a result of that, it's probably just not going to be played this turn. It wouldn't really be practical to play it, I feel. Um, Now, I am a little surprised that he pitched the Iron Song response here instead of the Glint. But maybe he's hoping to play the... See, the problem with this is... I don't know. We'll see. So Tiny blocks only for 3, taking 6 damage. Oh, so he blocks for 3, and then the Glint is actually played for the go again and the card draw. I think this is a bit of a mistake. I actually think this is a substantial mistake because he already has go again from his Warrior's Valor. Maybe he's anticipating defense reactions breaking through. I'm not sure. The thing about this is if he used the Glint, because the Glint pitches for 3, he could have pitched the Glint and then used his Brave Forge Bracers and then swung again with an additional +1. But he instead drew this out for Blood, which he doesn't have the resources to actually play. And if he wants to make his second attack, he has to pitch the out for Blood to swing. So because of that, having that playing that Glint, I think, was negative. It would have been better for him if he had kept the Glint so that he could get the boost from the Brave Forge Bracers when he did his attack. Anyway, the Dawnblade is now coming in for 5, and he says misplay on my behalf, and yeah, he may have realized the same thing that I just realized. So, yeah. And he says didn't need to play Glint. Lol. Yeah. So I suspect that what happened here. I suspect that what happened here is that he forgot about the. I suspect that he forgot that he had the go again from the Warrior's Valor, so he ends up doing a slightly weaker attack as a result of this. And it is probably still going to merit a big block here from Tiny, although it looks like Tiny is maybe considering letting this hit him. Boy, I would not do this if I were Tiny. It looks like he's going to let himself take 2 damage here. I have to say, so what he's going to try to do is do a single Kadachi swing into that Command and Conquer for 7. And I actually think this is going to prove to be a very negative play for Tiny, because Tolarian can just play that, he can just play the Sigil of Solace that he has in Arsenal in order to heal the Command and he can then let the Command and Conquer hit him because the on-hit effect doesn't matter anymore, and he can then come in with another ridiculous Dawnblade turn. I think that Tiny is being much too aggressive here relative to how I like to see Ira played. It's kind of a control deck, and maybe he's playing a really aggro variant or something, but typically Ira is kind of a control deck. Okay, so Kadachi poke for 1. Probably this is just going to get let through. It doesn't really matter. And wow, Tolarian has a super aggressive hand. He could easily do a lot of damage and maybe even close out the game. He's used his armor super aggressively as well. There he is using those bracers. And then here comes the CNC for 7. So this is a very classic move for the Ira player. So Command and Conquer here. Defense reactions can't be played against this. If this hits a hero, destroy all cards in their arsenal, and it comes in at strength 6. Normally the opponent just double blocks against this, but with Ira's ability giving +1 to your second attack in a turn, it comes in at 7 and can't be blocked by 2 cards. So that's really strong, but in this case, Tolarian has a great counter for it, playing that Sigil of Solace. The Sigil of Solace will just heal 3, it then clears up the arsenal, and then he can allow the damage to hit him, which will, it will remove 7 life points from his total, but it will not destroy any cards in Arsenal. And now he has a full hand to keep up the attack. And with that full hand, he may be able to close out the game, coupled with his 3 Dawnblade counters. A strength 6 Dawnblade is just crazy. But all Tolarian has to do, or all Tiny has to do, is stop Tolarian's onslaught for 1 turn. He just needs 1 turn. And he will have the opportunity to knock all those counters off the Dawnblade. But I don't know if he's going to get that 1 turn. Here comes the Dawnblade, played a Sharpened Steel red. Your next weapon attack this turn gains +3 damage. And then the Dawnblade with 3 counters already on it, that's coming in at strength 9. This is a really powerful attack. And I have to say, I'm not sure that Tiny is going to be able to cope with all of this. He has to stop that Dawnblade. But there's defense reactions in hand. I don't know if he can stop it. He needs to overblock this. This is so risky. Maybe he's thinking that his Flick Flat can counter any potential defense reaction, but I actually think he's dead right here because there's not just one defense reaction, there are two. He's already taking 3 damage with this. Yeah, the Iron Song response comes out. Iron Song response, if the defending hero is defended with a card from their hand this chain link, target weapon attack gains +3. Tiny does counter with the Flick Flack, and then I think we're going to see the out for blood from hand to close out the game. So this is currently at strength 12, with Tiny defending 9, so he would take 3 damage and live. But I think we're going to see that out for blood played from hand by Tolarian to do the extra damage and close the game. And yeah, and there it is, out for blood red. So out for blood coming in there, target weapon attack gains +3, and TinyGrimes responds with the GG. Yep, that is that's going to be that. Very, very aggressive game from both players here. Super aggressive. You do not normally see this going on, and I think they are going to do a rematch here. So I am going to stay here and keep broadcasting. That was about a 20-minute game there, with a hyper aggressive strategy from both players. Really, Tiny was defending a lot less than I expected him to, and Tolarian was able to just push the damage through, get those counters on Dawnblade, and close out the game with very aggressive use of his armor as well to maintain that aggression. You know, one of the things about Warrior is typically you cannot out-aggro Warrior, because if both sides are just swinging and hitting each other and letting the opponent hit them, the Warrior is getting those bonuses on Dawnblade that build up, and the opponent is not getting bonuses that build up, typically speaking. So it's very dangerous to try to win a race with Warrior. I do think Tiny was hoping that that command and conquer play was going to break up his opponent's momentum much more significantly. But with the Sigil of Solace and Arsenal, that turned out to be just the perfect counter. Tolarian opting to go first again. I have to say, I don't think going first is necessarily correct for Warrior in this matchup. I think often going second can be better. But he does go first, and last time it worked really well for him. Let's see if he can do the same thing. Wow, and once again, he has a very aggressive hand, so he could conceivably do Warrior's Valor into Dauntless. The problem is that there isn't really a big penalty. There isn't really a big penalty for Tiny to just defend very heavily here. So because of that, if we do see that Warrior's Valor into Dauntless swing for 9, what will probably happen is Tiny is just going to defend for 9 and then redraw his hand. So it's not really a great situation, I think. Tolarian doesn't have the extreme ability to push through damage that he did previously with his overpower. So under the circumstances, I think probably you just go for a lighter... Yeah, so he's going to go for just the Warrior's Valor into Dauntless, coming in at strength 6. He can potentially use that Stroke of Foresight to get through if there's an exact block or an incomplete block. And then if not, he can just throw that Dauntless into Arsenal. Looks like it's a double block. We'll see if he goes for the Stroke of Foresight here. It is a blue Stroke of Foresight, which is awkward. It's enough to get the hit, and then he could follow up. I think he's thinking about whether to play it. I might just keep it to fuel my next turn, just Arsenal the Dauntless and end. He did manage to get an E-Strike out of his opponent's deck, so that's something. And yeah, it looks like Tolarian has opted not to go for that Stroke of Foresight. Adventure Co Gaming is raiding with a party of 2. Welcome, Adventure Co Gaming. Happy to see you here. All right, the raid going on. How are you guys doing? How is the world of Flesh and Blood doing for you guys? For anyone who's just tuning in now and missed the previous match, we had a super aggressive match between these players that where Tolarian was able to prevail over TinyGrimes. Both players playing really aggressively, but the Warrior won out, getting a massive 3 Dawnblade counters by the end there. Adventure Co Gaming says just finished up. MetaGod says good morning. Yeah, good morning to you too. Although for me it's the evening. MetaGod, where are you from, and what meta are you the god of? We got in the meantime, it looks like we're just standard gameplay here with 2 Kodachi swings coming up. And the interesting thing here is that Tolarian does choose to let both attacks in. This is a little bit risky because it does mean that this third attack can potentially engage the Mask of Momentum for the card draw. Third attack is a Pounding Gale. The combo is not enabled here, so this is just coming in for strength 5. This card is often run just for its damage, I believe, and the fact that it has combo, just a 1 for 5, just something to try to push some damage through. And Open the Center was not the last attack in this chain. It's quite possible this deck doesn't even run Open the Center, but, you know, coming in for 5, still something to think about, and if it hits, it will enable a card draw thanks to that Mask of Momentum. When an attack action card you control is the 3rd or higher chain link in a row to hit, draw a card. Once again, we're seeing an early heavy block, a really heavy block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is he really going to block 7 here? I wouldn't block with the bracers. Just blocking 5 alone is fine. He might be worried about something being used to push the damage through there, but I wouldn't really be worried about that myself. I think that's an overblock from Tolarian. Even if there's a razor, I guess there is. Yeah, if there's a razor, it gets through anyway. Though if he only blocks 5, because the razor is for +3. So I think you either want to block. I think you either want to block 8, or you want to block 5, or you want to not block it. I think he was overblocking it. It looks like he's looking at the breaking scales there, and I think he was overblocking it because of that. So breaking scales, attack reaction, destroy breaking scales. Target attack action card with combo gets +1. And it has Battle Worn. If you defend with this, put a -1 counter on it when the combat chain closes. So that did have combo, so this could have been used to give it that +1 and potentially break through in order to get the card draw, but I think it would probably not have been worth it to do it this time. But that's just like my opinion, man. Okay, Courage of Bladehold once again being used extremely early. And the Iron Song Determination played out. Oh, once again, a huge attack here from Tolarian. Yeah, so he plays... Boy. So, Courage of Bladehold used. And then Iron Song Determinations. This has Dominate. It has +2 and Go Again from Spoils of War, and if it hits, it will get 2 copper. So that's strength 6, and then the Dauntless pushes it up to strength 9. And the next defense reaction card the defending hero plays this turn costs an additional +1. So strength 9 with Dominate, and the next defense reaction will cost +1. This is going to be a difficult attack. This is going to be a difficult attack for Tiny to deal with. Now, he does have a copy of Flick Flack in his arsenal here. If the next card you defend with this turn is a card with combo, it gains +2, and it does cost 0. The problem is that Dauntless is, I think, really going to be a problem once again. Metagod suggests I'd break Courage with Spoils and Iron Song Determination. 2 free attacks as long as Dawnblade hits. Yeah, so I think Tolarian is implementing a similar gameplay, but actually going even heavier than you were suggesting there. Now, Tiny has an awkward hand with 2 cards that only block for 2. These Life for a Lifes are not normally played in the Ira deck. I think he's maybe playing them to try to get some healing going. But they aren't normally played because of their weak defense, I think. A lot of these decks are running a lot of blue combo cards that they don't even have the right combo pieces for, just to get more 3 blocks with combo. And yeah, Metagod pointing out that both attacks gain Dominate. Yep, that's correct. So this is a pretty powerful attack. Okay, so we're seeing, and he does pitch to play the Flick Flack as well, so blocking a total of 4. But this attack is going to land anyway for a total of, yeah, so he blocks 4, pitching for the Flick Flack. That Dauntless really coming in handy here. The next defense reaction card the defending hero plays this turn costs an additional 1 to play. I don't know that I like this. I don't know that I like this from Tiny, but we'll see. I think he's trying to get his... I think he's doing that just to enable a 5 block from his next card. I think that Tolarian's going to play his second Dauntless. Yeah, he plays the second red Dauntless from hand, and then swings with the Dawnblade to try to get the damage just buffed up even more. So it's going to be 3, 4... This is going to be strength 6. Strength 6 with Dominate. So he could have used his... He could have used his Brave Forge Bracers instead and swung at strength 5 with Dominate, but at strength 6, it's now going to force a... it's now going to force... Or wait, he says 7 Dominate. Why is it 7? Oh yeah, it is 7. Yeah. So that's actually really good, because I thought it was only 6, but it is 7 because the Iron Song Determination buff stays on. And because of that... Tiny is not going to be able to stop this unless he uses a heavy equipment block. At 6, he would have been able to stop it with Breaking Scales. I actually think there's an argument for Tiny to sacrifice his mask at that point to stop that second attack and prevent the counter on Dawnblade. Just try to break the momentum. The odds of him getting a mask trigger are relatively limited anyway. Bronson says both dominate. That's rough. Yeah. So the Iron Song Determination and Steelblade Supremacy are both last all turn. Metagod pointing out that Iron Song Determination and Steelblade Supremacy are a great combination. You'll need to get the attack go again. Yeah, he could have done that with his bolters potentially. But yeah, those two work great in conjunction with each other because the buff lasts for all turn and it's really good. All right, so this turn is just going to be 2 Kadachi swings. Tolarian knows that and he can plan accordingly. So let's see what Tolarian's response is to a 2 Kadachi turn. No block. Fairly standard. Takes a hit. Second one for 2. No block. Just taking some damage. Tolarian using that Courage of Bladehold very early in the game. Really explosive turn. Managing to get that counter on Dawnblade and set Tiny back on life. But he takes some damage on his own turn, and the life totals aren't that different. However, Tolarian does have the advantage on tempo. Let's see what he does with it. So yeah, I mean, like, the dream situation for Warrior is, like, you have, you know, like, I don't know, you pitch blue and you play Iron Song Determination and Spoils of War red, and then you play Steelblade Supremacy, and then you swing and your strength, what, 3, 6, 7, you're like strength 10? Yeah. No, you're strength 9, and if it hits, you go again and draw a card, and it has Dominate, and then, yeah. Metagod says, Tolarian has a kind of bad hand now. Great cards, but not enough pitch to exploit it. Yeah, I think what he's probably going to try to... Now, I'm a little surprised that he didn't use the Iron Song Determination that he had in hand. I would have expected him to use that, but I think he may be saving it for pitch. Yeah, so we see a double block, and I think we're going to see him play a Stroke of Foresight to get through the double block. And then he'll probably pitch the Iron Song Determination, or maybe... Well, the Stroke of Foresight effect is actually quite relevant here. So Stroke of Foresight is... Target weapon attack gets +3. If the defending hero has defended with a card from their hand this chain link, draw a card, then put a card from your hand on the top or bottom of your deck. So he draws a Iron Song response. And we'll see what happens here. Ideally, he would draw something blue or whatever and be able to push more damage through. I think it's likely that he's going to use his Refraction Bolters to get go again on this attack and come in with another swing. So... The question is, yeah, so I think he's going to, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So he's going to put the other Stroke of Foresight back. Then he can pitch Iron Song Determination, use the Bracer, and swing with, oh, no, he's, okay. Oh, you know what he's going to do? I think he's going to save the Iron Song Determination for next turn. So instead of going for the second swing, he's just going to throw more damage into his swing this turn. So he's now at 4. He's at strength 4 plus. So he's hitting for strength 10. 6 is being blocked. So 4 damage is going to get through the defense here. And then he's going to put the Iron Song Determination in Arsenal and try to have a big turn next turn. A little surprising to me. I think I would have tried to go for another Dawnblade counter there. So I think what I would have done there is not played the Iron Song response. Used bolters, pitched the Determination, gone for a second swing, and then used the Iron Song response to get through. It looks like he is trying to maybe save that, so we'll see what happens here. Now, Tiny doesn't have much offense. It's just going to be Kadachi again. Metagod says, I'd still break the bolters. 4 attack would force both cards out of opponent's hand or else get another counter. Yeah, I think that would be... I think it would still be reasonable. I think he's saving it. I think his game plan is going to be to use the bolters with his Iron Song Determination to try to get multiple dominate attacks on this next turn. And we're going to see how that ends up doing for him. Now this time he has sort of the opposite flaw where he has a little much blue. Okay, so he's using his armor again very early. I don't think using the armor here is necessarily good. I think I would want to save it for a scenario where I could be potentially denying... Oh, but I guess he is, in a way, denying a Dawnblade trigger here if this third card is like a... if this third card is Soulbead Strike. But it isn't. It's just a card in Arsenal, and it is actually a sigil that TinyGrimes is going to be saving for a late-game heal. Yeah. Metagod, are you a Warrior player? Warrior is definitely my favorite class. It seems like you're kind of knowledgeable on some of the dynamics there with trying to get cards out of your opponent's hand, get the tempo advantage, get the counters on your Dawnblade. Okay, so Tolarian does play the Dauntless. I'm a little surprised that he plays it here because Dauntless is actually not all that good in this situation. And the reason that I say that is that so Dauntless makes the thing cost +1. The problem with that is that in this situation, the Fyendal's Spring Tunic is active. Dauntless is vastly better in situations where your opponent's Tunic is not active. When they have their Tunic charged up, they can often use it to essentially negate the Dauntless effect and avoid being pushed over that breakpoint. Metagod says, yeah, though I'm brewing some Kasai for Blitz. My best attack with Dorinthea was 18 damage in one turn in a Blitz match. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've been playing both Dorinthea and Kasai. I've been playing Dorinthea more recently in Blitz, trying to figure out. I actually have a deck fairly similar to Tolarian's Dropouts. He inspired me to some degree with a previous version of his current deck that is really heavy on attack reactions. So I normally like to play a wide style of warrior with a lot of generic attacks, and Tolarian showed me this deck that he was playing that went really tall with just tons of reactions, and I like that for Blitz. I think it might have a better chance of getting through Ira's defenses, and it does make Flick Flack a lot worse relative to the multiple attack game plan. So I have a variant of that, though I'm still doing some tinkering with it. By default, I think I like Kasai more, but I think that Dorinthea may be a little better positioned in the current environment. Okay, so he was going to say no block and take 6. And I think Tiny was going to come in with a defense reaction and try to get him. Everyone I play against knows Dorinthea so well it's difficult. Doria becomes too predictable. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So I think that by default, Dorinthea is like more or less the hardest character to defend against. But there's a certain point where you play against an experienced player who knows about like over blocking, keeping defense reactions in arsenal, knows what's important and what isn't important, like can tell what you have the energy to do and what you don't have the energy to do, that sort of stuff. And it definitely gets harder at that point. I think Warrior like absolutely demolishes people who don't know about all the reactions and stuff, but as your opponent gets more experienced, you stop getting some of those free wins. Metagod, what area are you playing in? I think if you're playing against the hardened veterans from New Zealand or whatever, it's definitely going to be a more difficult experience. So the Stroke of Foresight played there, huge damage, and then the second attack for 5 with Dominate. I have to say, I'm actually a little surprised he didn't save the Stroke of Foresight for the second swing. And Metagod says Canadian Discord. Okay, yeah, the I think the Canadian Discord is actually pretty experienced with the people playing all the webcam tournaments and stuff. I think a lot of the players there seem more experienced than people I encounter from like the UK or US for whatever reason. I'm not sure. Wow. So second attack does land. Second Dawnblade counter. And man, this is scary. I like Kasai a lot in Blitz, but I haven't quite figured out the best loadout for her against Ira. That's the main thing that I'm still kind of trying to figure out. Okay, so then Tolarian draws up 2 counters on the Dawnblade, 12 life to 1. He's in a very favorable position. Normally it would be a little risky for Tiny to make this attack because there is that threat that you're going to get hit by Steelblade Shunt, but he has actually not 1 but 2 copies of Sigil of Solace ready to heal him up, and meaning that he is not at all in instant death range. However, it could be it could potentially even be a kill turn from Tolarian on this next turn. He'd have to give up the prospect of making a second attack, but if he pitches that Blue Warrior's Valor and swings, he's swinging in for 5, and he has a route and an out for blood, and he could potentially play both of them if he pitches the Sigil of Solace here. So this could really be an opportunity for him to spike up hugely in damage. I think he's thinking about blocking. Oh yeah, he goes for a block. Okay, I think he's worried. He's wary of that Mask of Momentum. So he's blocking there to deny it. This is a situation where I think that this is a situation where having some armor left over might be good, but his aggressive plays with his armor have enabled him to keep a lot of aggression. Metagod, I believe Tolarian does run the blue Steelblade Shunt, but I don't think he has any other defense reaction. He might have Springboard Somersault, which is also somewhat aggressive. Yeah, so he's going for the play that I was discussing, where he's just going to push with the Dawnblade there, not trying to use the Warrior's Valor, just coming in for 5, and he has a Rout to back it up. So Rout is one of the best, most aggressive attack reactions Warrior has available. Target weapon attack gains +3, and with Reprise, if the defending hero has defended with a card from their hand this chain link, you may return target non-equipment defending card to its owner's hand. So that could potentially be crushing in the right circumstances. It's going to be a double block, and I think this is almost certainly going to be routed here. So currently no damage is getting through, but with the Rout, that would be a swing of +6. Yeah, and Metagod says Rout is awesome. It's effectively a +6 to the attack. Sometimes it can actually be even more. And yeah, there's the Rout, and he's probably going to send the Find Center back to hand because it's better that the opponent have that than have... No, he gives the opponent the turn of tempo back. I think that's a bit of a mistake. I would rather my opponent have more blue in hand against Ira than have one of their big attacks. Rout buffs it up to 8. Yellow Flick Flack now played. So the yellow Flick Flack is going to be only a +3 to the defense. So it's now defending 6 again with the attack coming in for 8. So once again, TinyGrimes finds himself on 1 life. And then the Sigil of Solace being thrown into Arsenal there. Dawnblade keeping its 2 counters. Rout there allowing... Tolarian to push through. I do think that he routed the wrong card though, and now Tiny is going to be able to do a more aggressive turn because that Torrent of Tempo was the card that was routed. If the Find Center was in hand instead, Tiny's turn would be much less aggressive here. As it stands, yeah. Metagod says Tiny's biggest mistakes seem to be tossing his CNC so early. Yeah, I mean, ironically, I think that if Tiny had CNC here, it would probably be worse for him than this Torrent. Well, maybe it wouldn't be. I don't know. If he had a CNC here, I think it would not be very impactful necessarily because he would get hit by that exact same situation that bit him last game where he plays CNC into a Sigil of Solace in Arsenal. Now, this is actually very awkward for Tolarian. He has to consider defending this attack because I think he should have defended the second. Oh, he's probably going to go and try to just get the kill. Yeah, so he's probably just going to go and try to get the kill. Okay, that's fine. So the thing about this Torrent of Tempo attack is that it's 5. If it hits, it gains Go Again. And also, if it hits, it's going to draw a card from Mask of Momentum. And so that lands for 5. Tiny discards his Kadachi. Yeah, so I remind them of the mask because it's mandatory. I normally don't like reminding people of things, but it is mandatory here. Warriors love having cards in their hand, and when a CNC comes across for 7, it throws us up hard, especially if we have something in Arsenal to lose. Yeah, so Metagod, last game, he was Tiny did the Kadachi into CNC, and Tolarian used his Arsenal card, which was a Sigil of Solace, and lived. It was a brutal situation for Tiny. And he actually didn't even use any cards. Okay, so then what was that card? It was a Rising Knee Thrust for 1. Okay, so then Tolarian doesn't block. It goes down to 2. Tolarian playing very aggressively. He's totally willing to take damage. Wow, and Tiny has an awkward hand. Once again, a weak defense hand with 2 copies of Drone of Brutality. Those are good with this deck, but they only block for 2. The Flick Flack in his hand also only blocks for 2, so he actually has 3 2 blocks and only 1 3 block in his hand. Not what you want to see against an aggressive warrior opponent. Tolarian pitches the hit and run and is coming in potentially for a ton of damage here. This is going to be a very difficult situation. Let's see if Tiny can navigate through the Warriors' attack reactions here. I feel like it will probably not be successful. I think this game is going to end with Tolarian winning this turn, but I could be wrong. The thing is, there's that. So he could potentially play that red over power, and the +6 from that is just going to be really difficult to counter. Like, typically you're not overblocking 6. So it goes for a double block, blocking 5. So that's an exact block. An exact block is not what he needs here. We're going to see a glint for the Go Again and draw a card. Glint being used here. Metagod says in this situation he should block with his whole hand, but it puts him in a terrible position either way. Yeah, so he is not in a good spot. He does have that Sigil of Solace in Arsenal, though, and that might be enough to save him. Tolarian thinking about what to do here. What is his arsenal card? Oh, it's a sigil. That's right. I personally think that I I think you pitch the Steelblade Supremacy and go for. Oh no! So he's gonna go for the poke. So he goes for the Iron Song response. I personally might have just gone for the overpower and tried to close the game immediately. Um, but this is actually lethal if there isn't a response. So this way he's going to bait out something, and then he could potentially do the overpower to push through there. Because he can still pitch the Steelblade Supremacy to pay for the overpower. That blue Iron Song response for just the +1 damage, but sometimes that +1 is just what you need to put your opponent into a tough spot. Tiny responds with the blue Flick Flack. So he is now defending for a total of 7 against an attack strength of 6. And I think we're going to see Tolarian pitch and come in with the red overpower for +6. And all of a sudden it's going to be 12-7. And I think that's the game. Red overpower. Weapon attack gets +4. Reprise is active. It's an additional +2. Attack coming in for +6. So that is a combined attack strength of 12. The current defense is a mere 7. So 5 damage would get through. There is a copy of Sigil of Solace in the arsenal, but it's not enough to save TinyGrimes. That's going to be the game. If he had overblocked with his Drone of Brutality as well, he would have actually lived. No, a full hand block would have left him on 1 life because he has a red sigil in arsenal, so he could have played that and blocked with the other drone as well, and then he would be on 1 life. But Tolarian would have used all his stuff and would lose his Dawnblade counters. However, I think that would still be a pretty bad situation for Tiny. And Tiny says, "Well, that's game then. GG." Yeah, he was not able to hold back the warrior attack reactions. So yeah, I mean, this was an interesting example. I do think that Tiny's deck is a little less able to defense, or I'm sorry, a little less able to defend than some of the other Ira decks. He is running a few cards like Scar for a Scar that are not, Life for a Life that are not typically seen in these Ira builds. I think he's trying to go for like big healing with his build, as I noticed that he was also running both the red and yellow sigils, but it led him to have some turns where his defense was just honestly not that good, with a fair number of 2 blocks in his hand, and as a result, the Dorinthea was able to push through. Metagod points out, didn't see any Sink Below or Fate Foreseen. Yeah, that's a good point. TinyGrimes says, you're able to sculpt some super powered turns. Hard to believe I let you have 2 counters as Ira. Yeah, I mean, Ira is typically known for being one of the most defensive decks. I don't think I've seen Sink Below or Fate Foreseen in either of these games. It's possible that he's just not running it. If they do a round 3, I'll cast that as well, but that might be the end for this. We'll have to see. But yeah, these were interesting games of the kind of a tall warrior trying to push through those defense reactions. They're still chatting a bit. I'm gonna keep the stream open in case they do go for a 3rd round. But yeah, so typically these aggressive plays from Dorinthea can be very nasty, but are vulnerable to defense reactions, especially big defense reactions. So one thing that I think in a classic constructed, the tall warrior playstyle is, in my opinion, really constrained by the existence of unmovable and staunch response, which are these really big defense reactions, and they're really able to cause a lot of problems for an opponent. And because of that, those defense reactions are able to push through and stop an attack kind of in its tracks, especially when played from Arsenal. And as a result, you really, I think, don't want the tall warrior playstyle in Classic Constructed. However, I and a few others have thought about this some, and I think that I do think that in Blitz it is a little better. Because in the Blitz environment, people don't have the ability to sideboard in unmovable or staunch response. If a lot of decks just don't even run defense reactions or run only small defense reactions because they need to be able to deal with Wizard, where defense reactions are near dead against Wizard. In this situation, the going tall can be more effective than you might expect. Additionally, Flick Flack, this is a really strong card. Flick Flack is a really strong card against a wide game plan because it can give you a huge amount of value. And going tall can help avoid that. So congratulations to Tolarian for the 2 wins. And yeah, I'm going to close down the stream. We're going to be streaming again on Tuesday. I'm going to stream some of my own recorded games, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. On Thursday, same deal, 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. May also do some other streams as things come up. Try to get some more games out there for you guys. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. And yeah, and Metagod in chat says, hate having my big 9+ attack turn shut down my unmovable. Yeah, unmovable is a problem, but yeah, it's an interesting situation. You know, we'll see how the game develops, but I think ironically the tall strategy that I've been moving away from in Classic might well be a better strategy in Blitz. All right, guys, that is going to do it for the broadcast, though. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back later. More Flesh and Blood, maybe some Star Wars Legion 2. And yeah, I will catch you guys later.